For thousands of years, the sands of Egypt have whispered secrets, secrets that don't belong to the stories in school books. Tonight, we open the history vault and journey into a world of forgotten capitals, sealed labyrinths, and treasures so strange they defy explanation. Listen closely. In the windswept silence of the Nile Delta, where reeds whisper and the ground remembers, a city rises from the silt. Tanis, its streets laid in mud brick and limestone, feels eerily paused, as if the last footsteps faded only moments ago. Doorways open onto courtyards with bread ovens still defined in clay. Thresholds worn smooth by vanished feet, drainage channels etched like veins through the earth. It is a city that looks back at you, mid-breath, mid-sentence, mid-life, then swallows its secrets again. Discovery at Tanis is not a single thunderclap. It's the slow revelation of gold glinting beneath flood-brown soil. A royal necropolis cut into the delta's damp heart yielded masks, jewelry, and sarcophagi that somehow escaped the grave robbers and the centuries. Names of kings surface here, echoes from the Third Intermediate Period, crowns pressed against darkness for 3,000 years. When the lids shifted and the lamplight settled, the room seemed to shine from within. This is why some call Tanis Egypt's shadow capital. While Thebes held the hymns and Memphis held the memory of empire, Tanis gathered power quietly, out here in the reeds. In the 21st and 22nd dynasties, authority braided itself between priestly Thebes in the south and the kings of the north. The inscriptions at Tanis are crisp, the treasures undeniable, yet the city remained a power behind the curtain, governing without the grandeur of a 1,000-foot pylon to announce it. And that is the contrast. Thebes stares at you from across the desert, its stone colossi burning in the sun, its paint preserved in air so dry even a breath feels permanent. Memphis wears antiquity like armor, old as the Old Kingdom, a name that rings with the weight of pyramids. Tanis, by comparison, is a paradox, royal, wealthy, crucial, and soft-edged by water. Papyrus rotted where Thebes kept its ink. Mud swallowed walls where Memphis had its quarries. The Delta's gift of life was also an eraser. Tanis also inherited confusion. When rivers shifted and capitals moved, builders quarried older cities for stone, dragging blocks with the cartouches of past pharaohs into new walls and fresh doorways. Time at Tanis is a mosaic, Ramses here, Shoshank there, a king's name interrupted mid-syllable by someone else's reign. For archaeologists, it's a labyrinth of dates, a ledger with figures recopied 3 times over. The result? Thebes and Memphis monopolized the spotlight, cleaner narratives, bolder silhouettes, while Tanis remained an epic told in whispers. Yet walk these streets, in your mind, in the dust, and you sense a precision beneath the haze. Workshops where gold beaters hammered sun into sheets, storehouses with sealed pots of grain, sealed again by the delta's clay, a city plan that funnels you toward sanctuaries, then hides the entrances in the churn of alleys. This is not the layout of a backwater. This is a capital that chose secrecy as strategy, or perhaps secrecy chose it. Which brings us to the intrigue that refuses to die, the theory of a hidden archive. If kings and priests shifted north, if treasuries moved, and sacred cults were tended in the marshland light, then somewhere, behind a blocked doorway, beneath a collapsed floor, there could be a cache of papyri, regnal lists, tax accounts, astronomical diaries, temple inventories. Not myth, but the everyday ink that anchors history to a calendar. In a period where Egypt's timeline frays and overlaps, the right document could stitch the years back together. The stakes are not academic alone, they are seismic. The way we align pharaohs with each other, with neighboring kingdoms, with eclipses and floods and wars, it all pivots on paper-thin evidence. One chamber, one chest, one roll of reeds unrolled under the right light could reorder centuries. If we find even one scroll in Tanis, Egypt's timeline could shift by centuries. Consider the symbolism. A city of repurposed stone holding the key to sorting out the repurposed time we've laid on it. The labyrinth is not only underground, it's in our understanding. Corridors of assumption leading to cul-de-sacs of guesswork. We trace cartouches across moved blocks and call it history, but the city keeps smiling, politely, enigmatically, behind the veil of the Delta. So why did Tanis never own the spotlight? Because it didn't need to. Power here was fluid, braided through marsh and market, handled with ledgers, marriages, and quiet processions at dawn. The spectacle belonged to Thebes. The inheritance belonged to Memphis. Tanis held the keys, and when flood and silt came, it let the surface be forgotten while the vaults took a long, slow breath. Listen again to the ground. The streets that look freshly abandoned haven't finished speaking. Somewhere past a false wall, beyond a stair that leads nowhere, a room may still be dry, its seals unbroken, its ink uncurled. If Tanis gives up a single voice from that silence, the Nile's history will run in a new channel, and the map in our minds will shift with it. Imagine stepping down into a place that, according to Herodotus, surpassed even the pyramids in grandeur, not in height or bulk, but in sheer bewildering scale. A labyrinth of 3,000 rooms, spread across vast courtyards and corridors, some above ground, others sunk deep into the earth. Each chamber adorned with intricate carvings, walls alive with reliefs telling stories long since forgotten. Columns carved from single blocks of stone rose like petrified trees, guiding pilgrims, rulers, and perhaps prisoners through its unfathomable maze. And then, nothing. The Labyrinth of Hawara, as later historians called it, has all but vanished. Centuries of Nile floods and the relentless quarrying of stone left no visible trace upon the surface. Only in fragments, in travelers' tales, in weathered hieroglyphs, does it linger. Yet beneath the farmlands near modern Hawara, whispers have started again. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry scans have revealed haunting anomalies. Massive rectangular outlines, perfect in proportion, lying buried like the bones of a sleeping titan. What was this place? Some believe it was a ceremonial heart of Egypt, where every nome, every province, had its own sacred chamber, forming a political map in stone. Others picture an immense royal tomb complex designed to conceal not just the pharaoh's body, but the bodies and treasures of an entire dynasty. And then there are the stranger theories, that it was a coded architectural text, a physical library of stone and symbol, where the act of walking the corridors was itself a journey through a calendar, a cosmology, a prophecy. Herodotus wrote of descending into underground halls, beyond description, where walls held all the marvels of Egypt. Roman writers echoed the astonishment, chambers so numerous that no visitor saw them all. Yet here, in our time, the labyrinth exists only as ghost geometry beneath the soil, a puzzle whose pieces we cannot yet fit together. If excavations ever reach those shapes in the earth, and if the labyrinth lies intact, the impact would be seismic. A structure greater in extent than any single monument yet found in Egypt, a site that could rival the Valley of the Kings, the Great Pyramid, and the temples of Karnak combined. It would be not just an archaeological find, but a rewriting of the map of human ambition. And so, the mystery waits under fields of quiet crops, unseen but not forgotten. The question is not whether the labyrinth once stood here. The question is whether it still sleeps there, whole, patient, and ready to open its doors. If the labyrinth is found intact, it may be the largest single archaeological discovery in human history. From the towering scale of vanished labyrinths, we step into something far more intimate. The painted walls of the rock-cut tombs at Beni Hasan. Here, the Middle Kingdom left us no pyramids, no colonnaded temples, but something just as revealing, the vivid brushstrokes of a world in motion. By torchlight, the scenes still hum with life after 4,000 years. Archers take aim in practice, their taut bows captured mid-draw. Wrestlers grapple in the dust, each muscle and strain carefully inked in ochre. Dancers, lithe, almost weightless, swirl to the beat of hand drums, while acrobats spring high into the air. And winding through it all, long caravans of traders lead antelope, giraffes, and even baboons, gifts from distant lands, proof that Egypt's reach and influence extended far beyond the horizon. It would be easy to see these as snapshots of daily life, charming fragments of history. But look closer. Every figure, every interaction is placed with deliberate care. These were not candid moments. They were messages, encoded for the living and the dead alike. A tomb owner shown overseeing trade and sport is not just documenting hobbies, he is projecting prosperity, stability, and the unshakable order of his household. The foreign animals speak of wealth and connections, the wrestling matches of discipline and strength, the graceful dancers of harmony and culture. These walls are Instagram feeds from 4,000 years ago, carefully curated to project power. They told visitors, and perhaps even the gods, that here was a man at the center of a thriving, ordered world. And in doing so, they became propaganda carved in pigment, a declaration that Egypt was secure, wealthy, and at peace under the ruler's watch. Standing before these scenes, you can almost hear the shuffle of feet in the wrestling pit, smell the dust of the arena, and feel the pride of a man who knew he would be remembered not just for who he was, but for the perfect life his walls promised he had lived. For Egypt, gold was never just a measure of wealth. It was the flesh of the gods, the sun made tangible, the promise of immortality beaten into sheets and wrapped around eternity itself. Pharaohs wore it, priests anointed idols with it, and the dead were sealed within it. Not for vanity, but for the belief that gold, untarnished by time, carried the soul into the next world unchanged. The heart of this obsession beat far to the south, in Nubia, a land so rich in gold that Egyptian scribes called it Taseti, the land of the bow. But it might as well have been the land of the sun's blood. From the time of the Old Kingdom, Egypt's armies, diplomats, and traders pushed into Nubia's hills and river valleys to secure its mines. Caravans carried raw gold upriver in reed boats, their holds guarded as fiercely as any fortress. Treaties were forged, royal marriages arranged, and temples raised, all under the unspoken truth that the lifeblood of Egypt's splendor flowed north from Nubia. Yet not all of Egypt's gold slept in the shadow of the Valley of the Kings. Lesser-known caches gleamed in distant deserts and hidden tombs. Ceremonial masks hammered with unearthly precision lay beneath crumbling mud-brick pyramids in El Lahoun. Gilded statues, no taller than a man's arm yet wrought with divine detail, were buried in the sanctuaries of frontier temples where sandstorms kept their vigil. These treasures were often far from the eyes of Cairo-bound scholars, their stories scattered, their locations guarded in whispers. And then there are the ghosts, artifacts taken not in modern times, but in antiquity itself. Looted in the chaos of invasions, spirited away by grave robbers who vanished into history, they have yet to resurface. Golden pendants that once hung at the throats of warrior queens, drinking vessels engraved with the rites of forgotten gods, amulets that may rest in the riverbed of the Nile or in the hidden chambers of private hoards, their gleam unseen for thousands of years. Egypt's gold obsession was more than greed. It was a covenant between heaven and earth. And somewhere, in the dunes, in the ruins, in the silence beneath the Nile's silt, pieces of that covenant are still waiting to be found. For over 4,000 years, the Great Pyramid of Khufu has guarded its secrets. Even now, modern eyes armed with space-age tools cannot fully pierce its mystery. In recent years, teams have scanned the pyramid using muon radiography, cosmic particles that pass through stone like X-rays through flesh, revealing shadowy anomalies within the colossal structure. Among them, slender, mysterious shafts angling away from known chambers, and a vast, hidden void the length of a passenger plane, its purpose unknown. Ancient whispers speak of a fabled hall of records, a repository of lost knowledge sealed beneath Giza by priests who sought to protect the wisdom of the gods from flood, war, and time. Some claim it was never myth, but memory. That somewhere in the bedrock beneath Khufu's monument lies a chamber lined with golden scrolls and star maps older than Egypt itself. Mainstream archaeology cautions restraint. The void could be a natural space in the stone core, a relieving chamber to lighten the pyramid's weight, or an unfinished corridor abandoned millennia ago. Yet even the most cautious admit its geometry appears too precise to be random, and so the debate continues between legend and evidence, faith and science, as the pyramid holds its silence. Egypt's story doesn't end with what we can see. It lingers in the cold breath of untouched corridors, in the weight of stone above forgotten passageways, in the silence between each grain of desert sand. Its history isn't just carved in stone, it's written in the empty spaces, in the dust we've yet to sweep away. Somewhere a secret stirs, and whether it reveals a king's final chamber, a map to the stars, or nothing but shadows, it will still shift the way we see the past. Which secret will rise to meet the light first? That's for time, and perhaps you, to decide.